So welcome to the seventh and final meeting of this Interim Joint Ag Committee meeting for 2024. Appreciate everyone's attendance. I'm going to go ahead and we'll call the roll, get that done, and then we'll take care of a few housekeeping things, then we'll get down to business.
Senator Chambers Armstrong, Senator Boswell, Senator Carpenter, Senator Deneen, Senator Givens, Senator Thayer.
Here.
Senator Webb, Senator West, Senator Westerfield, Senator Wilson, Representative All.
Here.
Representative Callaway, Representative Kleins, Representative Dixon, Representative Pfister,
Here.
Representative Graham,
Here.
Representative Hale,
Here.
Representative Hart,
Here.
Representative King,
Present.
Representative Cook, Representative McPherson,
Here.
Representative Neighbors,
Here.
No fear.
Representative Pollock,
Here.
Representative Pratt,
Present.
Representative Rayburn, Representative Stalker,
Present.
Representative Stevenson, Representative Tate,
Here.
Representative Thomas,
Present.
Representative Tipton, Senator Howe, co-chair, and Representative Heath, chairman.
Here,
We have a quorum.
we have a quorum. Thanks everyone for showing up. My first item of business is introduce my special guest. I'll take the chairman's privilege. So if you guys will stand, my wife, Ruth, who's not her first time, but we have two of our granddaughters, Haley, 17, and Lila, 9. And good to have you. Would y'all make them welcome? Now extend the courtesy to my colleagues if you have a guest you would like to introduce. Representative Pfister.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to introduce Braden Lacefield. He's one of my constituents out of Woodford County. Thanks for coming, Braden.
Make him welcome. Anyone else? I'm going to do one more special introduction, and I'm going to embarrass him a little bit. I want to ask Representative Myron Dossett if he'll come up here and stand next to me. Put you on the spot. Come on, Chairman.
Oh, no, you're fine. I love you so much.
Thank you very much.
So if you haven't heard, this is the next chair of the House Agriculture Committee, and we're going to do a ceremonial passing of the gavel, but he doesn't get to keep it because everybody knows Susan is the keeper of the gavel. And if you're nice, she'll let you use it. And if you're not, she'll beat you with it.
I've got a feeling she will share. Thank you.
I'm glad it worked out where we could do that. We don't typically meet in December, so we don't always have the opportunity to do that. And Myron's been here a long time. He's he knows how this all works. He's got a lot of friends, a lot of institutional knowledge, and he'll do a great job. So we'll get on into our business at hand. Yes, let's have approval of our last minutes. Entertain a motion for approval. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And any opposed signify by saying nay. So the ayes have it, motion carried. So we'll call up our first folks on the agenda, and I think some of them are by Zoom. Okay. Is anybody here in person?
Dr. Thompson.
Okay, Dr. Thompson, yes. Are you the only one at the table? No, couldn't get any of your friends to come with you? Friends will do you that way sometime. And is push your button on your mic, make sure that green light comes on.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. I knew you knew. You'd done this before. And just introduce yourself for the record, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Aaron Thompson. I'm the president of the Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education. Good to be with you, committee. I'll only take a minute or two, but before I get into the presentation, I do want to take a moment, if you don't mind, and say goodbye to some friends of mine that I've worked with over the last many years. Representative Stevenson, so good to work with you. Representative Graham, decades, good to work with you. Senator Thayer, always, it's been good to work with you. And Mr. Chair, you too. We will miss you. In Frankfurt, I'm sure you will not be quiet, but we will miss you. So it's been good to work with you.
Representative Pratt.
Oh, and Representative, absolutely, I miss, yes, you too, all of you. So it's been good to work with you. I'm here today to talk about Senate Joint Resolution 170. Before we get started, I guess I want to set it up in a manner. We're only talking about part of it, obviously, and that's the Murray State Vet School. But I want to just give a little bit about higher education before we get started. In the last 5 or 6 years, as you all know, Kentucky's been leading in so many areas in higher education. We're proud of that. And, you know, for an example, we were the first state to bounce back after COVID in enrollment. Last year, we set records in enrollment increase. This year, we're going to do the same. We also have seen our graduation rates shoot up. We've seen our attainment rate shoot up to over 55% now. And we've seen, in fact, our retention rates going up, and we're closing gaps. All of these things you assigned us to do many years ago. The school we're going to be talking about today is Murray State. They've been one of the leaders in making some of this happen. Now, as we look at, basically, that's what some of these resolutions have caused us to do, the missions of our institutions. As was stated in House Bill 1, 1997, some things are changing. What does it all mean? And as we look, or as you look at seeing where we're going to go with some of these items that we've presented to you, it's important to understand that all of this means that we're going to have to double down, including my office, on what quality looks like and so on. So beyond the approval or not approval of any of these items that you have, we still have a program approval and review process even after that. So there are many other levels of what I would consider to be due diligence in these processes. So, sir, I wanted to give you some of that as we start this. I'm going to let my friends with Deloitte basically take us from here and come back and have any answers for any questions that you may have of me.
So I asked Deloitte to continue then. If you will introduce yourself for the record, and the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you all for your time today. My name is Scott Friedman, and I'm a principal with Deloitte Consulting, with a focus on higher education strategy. I've been with Deloitte for approximately 9 years, but have been focused exclusively on management and strategy consulting for colleges, universities, and affiliated and associated entities for the last 19 years. With me today is my colleague, Amy Whitmayer, whom I will now have introduce herself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amy Whitmayer. I am a specialist leader with Deloitte Consulting, also with a focus on higher education strategy. I have worked with Deloitte for over 4 years. Prior to my time at Deloitte, I spent 14 years in higher education administration, including roles in career services, as well as academic program administration.
Excellent. Amy, if you could share the slides and jump to the next one, I guess. Thank you. So our work was conducted pursuant to the requirements of SJR 170, as Dr. Thompson just referenced, which occasioned 5 analyses, specifically feasibility reviews of proposed doctoral programs at Eastern Kentucky University, Western Kentucky University, Kentucky State University, and Murray State University, as well as a review of the CPE coordinated program approval process. Amy is going to talk through the details of our scope in a minute. You have previously been provided our full report. Today, we will focus on the executive summary, specifically a review of the scope of our study, the approach and methodology that we undertook, and the summary of our findings specific to, in this circumstance, the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine or DVM program proposed at Murray State University. So you'll see the focus of our conversation today is what's boxed in yellow on your screen. I'll now turn it over to Amy to start to walk through the executive summary.
Thank you, Scott. Before we speak about the scope of the study, I wanted to mention that our report materials have the date stamp of November 25th, 2024. There may have been developments in the intervening time and developments still to come, but our materials date November 25th. On this slide, we have an overview of the scope of the SJR 170 study. CPE engaged Deloitte Consulting between August and November of 2024 for 14 weeks to conduct 4 feasibility studies and offer recommendations regarding the overall new program approval process going forward. Related to Murray State, our project team was tasked to assess the feasibility of Murray State offering a doctoral program in veterinary medicine or DVM program. We also sometimes refer to it as CVM, which is the College of Veterinary Medicine. Importantly, the charge was a feasibility assessment, specifically the intersection of a proposed program at a particular university. Again, confined to this narrow scope of the feasibility of Program X at University Y, in this case at DVM at Murray State. Now, for reference, here is a snapshot of Murray's proposal for the DVM program. Importantly, the Vet Med program would employ a distributive model for clinical education, where students would complete their education via a network of clinical partners. This contrasts with the traditional model of veterinary education, where DVM students complete most of their clinical education in affiliated teaching hospitals. On the right, you can see a proposed program launch date of the fall of 2027, with a target cohort size of 70 students, reaching a total enrollment of 280 by year 5, and our estimates of 15 incremental faculty and 42 staff and administrators required to operate this at the school. Here, as shared by Murray, their motivating factors in pursuing this DVM program are to help address the shortage of rural veterinarians, to offer the first veterinary medicine program in Kentucky, allowing for Kentuckians to stay close to home for their studies, and finally, to build on their existing agricultural facilities and expertise. So with that as the grounding in this program proposal, I would like to pass it back to Scott to share a bit more about how we conducted the analysis.
Thank you, Amy. I'll now spend some time walking you through our approach and methodology. Please note that this section applied to all 4 of the doctoral program feasibility studies, not just Murray State. If you jump to 8, thanks, Amy. To promote analytical rigor, objectivity, and consistency across the 4 feasibility studies, we established a set of principles to guide our analysis. I will not walk through all of these, but there are a few that I think are worth highlighting specifically. First of all, we felt that it was important to engage extensively with the leadership at the 4 institutions to understand their goals, visions, and plans for the proposed programs. But we needed to balance that with ensuring that our findings were exclusively evidence-based. In the report, you will see that our findings are mapped to validated and reputable data sources, including the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Dataset, or IPEDS, SHIO, and industry organizations such as the American Veterinary Medical Association, or AVMA. We engaged with a diverse set of stakeholders, both within and outside the proposing universities, to develop an holistic perspective on the programs and the likely benefits and risks inherent in each. We took a forward-looking perspective, meaning that we reviewed the programs, processes, and relevant statutes from both a current state and future state perspective, incorporating anticipated changes to the higher education ecosystem, both across the country and in the Commonwealth directly. We prioritized attention on analysis that would materially impact the feasibility assessments. And finally, we attempted to arrive at a balance between the goals of the individual institutions and how each of the proposed programs would potentially address the broader needs of the Commonwealth and its citizenry. Amy, if you'll jump to slide 9. Thank you. Over the course of the last 3+ months, our team is engaged with a diverse group of stakeholders across the various scopes of analysis. We talked with more than 75 university administrators, staff, and faculty at the proposing institutions, and spent time on each of their campuses, engaging in person with their leadership teams. We interviewed CPE leadership and met with them regularly to promote alignment and transparency. We met with over a dozen government and community officials, including state senators, representatives, and representatives of the governor's office. We engaged with leadership from other institutions, including the University of Kentucky, KCTCS, and Moorhead in the Commonwealth, as well as Auburn, UMES, and Texas Tech outside. These interviews supplemented benchmarking conducted with more than 100 peer institutions of the proposing universities using publicly available data. And we met with leaders from industry associations, received and reviewed position letters from industry organizations and practitioners, and spoke with potential employers relevant to each of the proposals. Amy, if you'll jump to the next slide. Thank you. In addition to those qualitative inputs, we reviewed hundreds of documents provided by CPE and the proposing institutions. These data were focused on enrollment, student success, institutional and programmatic finances, facilities, and intended staffing for the proposed programs. We also validated institutional assumptions by leveraging a number of external data sources, including credit agency findings, accreditation reports, standards and requirements, demographic and labor market trends, and information from the Kentucky Performance Funding Model. To develop a digestible picture of our feasibility assessment to align with the requirements of SJR 170, we developed a set of criteria on which to evaluate each of the proposed programs. Given the requirements of SJR 170 that each institution's recent financial performance, sufficiency of research facilities, and performance on student success outcomes be considered in the analysis, we evaluated each proposing institution across those 3 dimensions. We then evaluated the feasibility of each proposed program across 6 additional dimensions. Number 1, faculty recruitment. Specifically, can the program recruit and retain sufficient qualified faculty to deliver the program? Number 2, student demand. Is there sufficient student interest for the specific program and/or field of study? Number 3, workforce alignment. How aligned is the program with meeting existing or future anticipated workforce needs in the Commonwealth? And will graduates find meaningful placements in their chosen fields? Number 4 was accreditation standards. Will the institution be able to obtain and maintain necessary accreditation for the program? Number 5 was clinical placements, where hands-on practical experience is required for the degree. Will the program be able to secure these placements in sufficient numbers? And finally, number 6, cost-benefit analysis. How do the costs associated with launching and operating the program compare to the expected revenues and other returns that would be generated? I will now turn it over to Amy to walk through our specific findings relative to the DVM program proposed at Murray State.
Thank you, Scott. Before we dive into the summary of findings, I would like to ground you all in the meaning of the 1-page feasibility assessment you are about to view. For each of the dimensions that Scott just outlined, we performed a detailed analysis contained in the full report and summarized then each dimension with an accompanying color of red, yellow, or green. What we are communicating in these summaries is that for each of these dimensions, such as workforce alignment or student demand, we may have no or few feasibility concerns indicated by green color, some feasibility concerns, which is indicated by yellow, or significant feasibility concerns, which is indicated by red. Finally, I wanted to share that the red, yellow, green does not represent a go or no-go judgment. This is for policymakers and decision makers to ultimately decide. Our analysis is meant to highlight, with data and evidence, where there may be feasibility concerns, so that, again, decision makers may make informed decisions and/or discuss these risks before launching these new programs. So with that in mind, let's review the summary feasibility assessment for Murray State. You can see we have developed a feasibility assessment meant, again, to summarize the detailed sections of the full report, provide that snapshot of red, yellow, green, and report out an overall feasibility assessment in the blue box. All of this, again, summarize the very detailed report, which we are happy to refer to as and when you have questions. Let's walk through Murray's feasibility assessment in more detail, taking each dimension one at a time. First, related to Murray's current state conditions. Again, this is independent of the specific DVM proposal. You can see 3 greens noted here. First, financial health. We have noted no or few concerns here. Murray State has generally balanced growth in net position and a strong balance sheet. Second, with regards to student success, we saw no or few concerns here. Murray State student success metrics have consistently outperformed the averages of their Kentucky comprehensive peers, and Murray has performed better than or equivalent to other Kentucky public comprehensive institutions on 8 of 9 metrics tracked in the Kentucky Performance Funding Model. With regards to research infrastructure, we have no or few concerns noted here. While Murray is not a research institution, their current research expenditures are on par with the median of other public comprehensives in Kentucky. And notably, they have existing facilities and equipment in veterinary sciences that can support growth in research in these areas. Now turning to the proposed College of Veterinary Medicine, or CVM, itself. First, the cost-benefit analysis. A CVM is a resource-intensive endeavor. By our projections, operating expenses for the new CVM school may exceed $13 million per year. Notably, we used peer benchmarks to inform the assumptions behind faculty and staff hiring needs, the biggest expense driver in the model. Murray State asserts that they can operate a CVM with a much leaner staff than their peers, specifically 8 FTEs, including 3 student workers. This compares to roughly 40 FTEs by our estimates. They do have, and this is because they have, existing animal care staff that they can scale across the vet school. That said, our projections accounted for the full staffing needs of the college, including admission staff and clinical placements, and we cannot validate that they had existing staff that could be scaled in these areas. In our model, the CVM would generate a modest surplus under moderate planning assumptions and a deficit under conservative assumptions. The vet school is also projected to generate significant economic impact in Callaway County and Kentucky more broadly. With regards to student demand, demand for seats in DVM programs is high today and is projected to remain high in the future. even after accounting for a possible 45% growth in DVM programs in the US, as other institutions also look to enter this market and established schools plan to grow their class sizes. Regarding workforce alignment, we indicated some feasibility risk here due to concerns that the proposed CVM is not the best solution to addressing the shortage of rural veterinarians in Kentucky. While there is evidence of a shortage of large farm animal veterinarians in rural counties in Kentucky, which our report notes, historical data and industry experts dispute claims that a new in-state vet school can meaningfully address this shortage. They point to challenges in the vet student pipeline. Most veterinary students aspire to care for companion animals, and most, roughly 80%, come from urban and suburban areas and plan to return after graduation. DVM students on average also carry high debt levels and are attracted to companion care positions in urban and suburban settings because those jobs tend to pay more. Murray State does dispute these limitations and believes that they are well positioned to address the rural vet shortage due to their historical successes sending graduates of professional programs into rural communities. Now, turning to faculty recruitment, we note some feasibility concerns based on the magnitude of investment, as well as a current documented shortage of veterinary medical faculty in the US. We estimate that Murray will need to hire approximately 15 faculty FTEs, and they will command salaries that far exceed Murray's current average faculty salaries. Murray has accounted for these high salaries in their plans, and they have some vet faculty on staff currently who can teach in the new CVM, which mitigates some, but not all, of the risk here. Now, with accreditation standards, the AVMA sets a high bar for institutions to clear to receive accreditation for CVMs. Murray State will need to produce substantial high-quality research, which will require significant investment, including a potential investment in startup packages to compete for faculty, which peers estimate at $300,000 to $400,000 per research faculty member. They will also need to provide facilities sufficient to house animals for teaching and research. While they are currently planning the construction of a new veterinary science building that will serve the needs of future veterinary students as well as students in their current pre-vet and vet tech programs, which they've already secured funding for from the legislature, some peer program deans noted that the animal welfare requirements for animal sciences facilities differ from that of veterinary medical facilities, and the project team was unable to validate that Murray factored that into their current design and construction plans. And finally, with regards to clinical placements, CVMs using the distributive model of veterinary education do not have teaching hospitals. Instead, they send students into the community for their third and fourth years to receive clinical training at hospitals, clinics, zoos, and other facilities. This creates feasibility concerns and risks for any potential CVM using the distributive model, as they need to secure a number of clinical placements. CVMs using the distributive model cannot scale clinical placements easily. They typically can only put 1 to 2 students at a clinical site at a time, leading our team to estimate that they will need approximately 200 clinical partners to fulfill curricular requirements. While many surveyed vets across the Commonwealth have expressed interest in providing clinical rotations to Murray students, Murray may need to look outside of the state to find all necessary clinical partners, particularly in animal medicine specialties where potential clinical sites are more limited. As a point of reference, the Lincoln Memorial CVM across the border in Tennessee sends students into 35 states for clinical rotations, though we note that LMU's student body is larger than Murray's proposal. This concludes our formal remarks and review of our formal material. And I think we're done, Scott. Yes?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, we're happy to take any questions the committee may have.
Do we have any questions at this time or comments? Representative Tipton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate your presentation. I know you've done double duty because you were for the Interim Joint Committee on Education to talk about all four of the possible program growth models. You mentioned there's going to be a large growth. Do you know how many other institutions across the country are looking at adding a distributive model of vet school in the near future?
Let me head to that slide because I believe we have, excuse me, a slide related to that in our student demand. If you'll give me just a moment so I can get to that. Okay. This is a view of the school demand. This is a view of some of our peer admissions statistics. Here is the current state for fully accredited CVMs as of this year. And here is the planned new DVM programs, as well as seat expansions, importantly here, across the timeline into the future. So you'll note in the middle of the slide in 2025, a number of new institutions listed there. 2026, 27, and then also we have noted 10 seats from university expansions that we know of in 2028.
And the institutions
and the asterisks.
Yep. Go ahead.
Sorry, Scott. Where the institutions have an asterisk, they are using or planning to use the distributive model of clinical education. I hope that helps answer your question.
Mr. Chair, could I have an additional question?
Yes.
One of your concerns you mentioned is the accreditation of these schools. And as you said, it's a very intensive process. Do you have any information, or do you have any research? Have there been schools who have attempted this to get credited and were not able to be accredited? And do you know what the roadblocks were to their accreditation?
I don't think that our report covered that specific question, but I would be happy to review all of our research notes and come back to you if indeed we did uncover that information.
Thank you. Senator Givens.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And to the folks at Deloitte, thank you for the presentation. I had the chance to see this in one of the other committees as well. I think it was the Education Committee possibly, and again today. So thank you for the work you've done on this. My question goes to the two areas that you've just addressed with my colleague, Representative Tipton, on student demand and on workforce alignment. In your analysis, not so much of this proposal by Murray, but of the entirety of the industry, and realizing it's hard to know what the future looks like. But as we've seen activity in Colorado, providing a different mid-level practitioner scope of practice entity through some legislation that passed there, and knowing what's happened over the course of time in human medicine with advanced practice registered nurses, did you pick up any inkling of what the future for the position of Doctor of Veterinary Medicine may look like in 10 years that is potentially different from what it is today, and the delivery of medical care to animals?
Amy, do you want me to answer that? Senator Gibbons, thank you for that. That was not within the ambit of our scope under SJR 170. We focused our activity on an analysis of the particular program in the Murray State case, an analysis of the feasibility specifically of the Murray State program, the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine program at Murray State.
Senator Givens, maybe I can add some to that. We have looked at some of the future possibilities. I know there's a lot of discussions around vet nurses. There's some discussions around maybe changing some definitions around vet techs and vet assistants, maybe to do a little more alignment like they have in the human medical field. So there's a lot of discussions along those lines because there's a clear call out or a need, if you will, for more of these, especially in large animals. So I know those discussions are happening in different places with those associations that represent these areas, as well as with some institutions around the country.
I don't see anyone else in the queue. Hang just one second. Representative Stevenson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have some questions around recruitment and retention of faculty and students. So I want to be sure that I heard you correctly, that there are 10 faculty members there currently teaching the vet tech students, and these are the same faculty members that we believe will also start for this school. Is that correct?
The 10 faculty were cited by Murray State as being able to be utilized in this CVM. I cannot speak to exactly what department they are currently in. I'm sure the leadership team from Murray State would be happy to provide more detail there.
Follow up, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
If we have anybody here that can answer that.
I think they'll be coming to the table probably to address a piece of that in a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. Am I right? Yes.
All right. Do we know then also, is there one of the reasons that we've been talking about this, right, is because we have a large animal vet shortage here in Kentucky, and part of the need for this has been to ensure that those people stay here. Was there anything in the plans that you all saw that will ensure that some of those students stay and practice here? Are there any incentives for that built into the programming that you all found in your study?
I will let Murray State discuss any incentives that they may have. Our cost benefit analysis and our study was really meant to gauge the number of students and understand their motivations. They have certainly shared with us their intent of recruiting students who hail from rural backgrounds, which would then in turn hopefully lead to them returning to those. But beyond that, I would have to defer to them on their specific plans to ensure that the students stay in the Commonwealth and stay in the rural practice areas.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll hold my questioning for them to come to the table. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And actually, they are up next.
Can I address a part of that question, though? I think it's important for us to understand, with all these SJRs we're doing, whether we're looking at the hazard 4-year study, whether we're looking at the med school, whether we're looking at the vet school, all of those, to get those professions into those areas that we need, I think it has to be a 1-2 punch or a parallel punch. Now, I'm sure Murray's going to answer what they're going to do, and they probably got a good plan. I think they do. But a part of what we have to think about around economic development, how do we develop incentives to make people go in those areas, stay in those areas, and do those things? Even if we have a med school, we have to have people go to Clay County, Kentucky, and want to live there and stay there. So I think if we're going to build 4-year institutions, that means automatically economic development happens unless there's jobs there to build it. So a part of what I would caution all of us to think about, we can provide, but we also are going to have to think about how do we create that incentive or that needs there, but how do we create the desire, the want to become there, to build out the culture, to build out the places where they want to be and stay. So I would just want us to know that we also have to think about it as a parallel or a 1-2 punch, no matter what we do.
With that being said, then we'll let you take a pause and bring Murray State to the table. And You guys have been here before. Welcome back. To push the button and make sure your green light is lit up, and then introduce yourself for the record, and the floor is yours.
Members of the committee, thank you. It's good to see everyone. And as was pointed out earlier, those who are retiring, congratulations as well, and enjoy your time. Most importantly, thank you for your service to this Commonwealth. These are hard jobs, and we appreciate your service of the last many years. I have some prepared comments, Mr. Chairman, if you'd allow me, and I think it will answer some of the questions, and we're happy to take any question you may have afterwards as well. So with me today is Dean Brian Parr of our Hudson School of Agriculture, Jordan Smith, our Assistant Vice President of Public Affairs. I also want to thank everyone who's provided support, a vote, or co-sponsorship regarding a School of Veterinary Medicine at Murray State University. In 2024, in the legislative session, 106 members of the General Assembly either sponsored, voted for, or assisted with in some manner our particular bill to allow a doctorate of veterinary medicine to be offered at Murray State University. Representative Imes has already pre-filed a bill to provide enabling language, the same language, for a School of Veterinary Medicine at Murray State University. It's BR 232. And many of you once again have stated your support, and we want to thank you for that. Senator Howell and I met a few days ago and discussed his support and plans to move forward in the Senate as well. And I want to thank these legislators and others in regard to the questions, the thoughts, the assistance that have been provided. In addition, I want to thank all of you and other members of the General Assembly as it relates to the appropriation in 2024 of a $60 million veterinary sciences building. This will allow us to further enhance our pre-vet programs, our vet tech programs, and related animal science programs at Murray State University. About 450 students are in those particular programs today, along with other major capital projects and other support you provided. We appreciate that assistance very much. So please allow me for just a few minutes to touch on three areas. One, the Deloitte study, in responding to some of the items that have been presented already. The history of a School of Veterinary Medicine at Murray State University, and some facts regarding the shortage of veterinarians in our Commonwealth, especially the need in rural Kentucky, and especially the need to serve our regions and this state among large animal veterinarians in that particular area. So the Deloitte study overall is very positive, and we're very pleased with the outcome of that. There are items and points we do not agree with or have a difference of opinion in some areas, and I'll point some of those out. But as noted in the Deloitte study, we are the strongest financially positioned comprehensive university in the Commonwealth. We have the top student success metrics. We have agriculturally related resources in place. We have farm and livestock assets today at Murray State University, and those of you who know our campus, have toured our campus, know that this is a strong area of emphasis for our university. We have the students who desire to further their education in these particular areas and want to go into a veterinary science field. The student demand in this academic field is very high, and the workforce need is well noted. The Deloitte study, and I want to point this out again, and there's wording, I'm not sure it was on one of the slides, but I quote, "There's an undisputed shortage of rural large animal vets in Kentucky." Murray State University has a record of successfully placing graduates in rural areas. Lastly, Deloitte noted Murray State University has a strong foundation upon which to build a new college of veterinary medicine. including strong institutional financials, existing facilities, and expertise in animal sciences. And the proposed College of Veterinary Medicine would contribute positively to our state and local economies. Some brief history, and some of you know this history because we've shared it with you in the last many months. For over 50 years, we have been advancing the discussion and pushing for a School of Veterinary Medicine at Murray State University in order to serve the agricultural needs of our Commonwealth. No one else, no other college or university in Kentucky can make this claim. On May the 3rd, 1973, our Board of Regents passed a unanimous resolution in order to address this growing need and issue in Kentucky. In 1974, a bill was filed but did not pass due to some of the same issues being purported today. However, we'll continue to talk about the issues and the solutions and solving the problems that we're facing. 2023, our Board of Regents passed another unanimous resolution after much research and consideration and a feasibility study paid for by Murray State University. It was led by a team from the University of Georgia, along with other members from schools of veterinary medicine and other consultants to assist us in this particular area. In the 2024 legislative session, House Bill 400, this enabling bill allowing a doctorate of veterinary medicine to be awarded at Murray State University, passed 84 out of 100 votes, of course. In the Senate, Senate Bill 189, which was Senator Howe's companion bill, had 22 co-sponsors. There's been a great deal of discussion in the past 18 months in regard to our initiative in this area. And let me provide a few facts, not opinions, but facts as it relates to this particular topic. Again, it is indisputable that there is, and it's a fact, there's a demonstrated shortage of veterinarians in the United States and in Kentucky, especially in rural Kentucky, and especially among large animal veterinarians. And I don't think it was presented just now. I want to go to page 99 of the Deloitte study. Our feasibility study has something very similar, and it shows the map of shortage areas in this Commonwealth as well. I think 99. That's the vet schools. It's the Kentucky map. I think it's page 99. There you go. So 80 of our 120 counties are designated as veterinary shortage areas or underserved rural shortage areas. And this is from the Deloitte study. In addition, and importantly, we want to partner with all colleges and universities in Kentucky, public and private, and we've been contacted by several, in order to assist our students in all parts of the Commonwealth as we address this issue in a comprehensive and thoughtful manner. In 2023, so last year, there were 160 Kentucky applicants to a vet school seeking a doctorate in veterinary medicine. Only 67 students were accepted. 37 went to Auburn. Out of 130 Kentucky applicants, 2 went to Tuskegee. Also in the Deloitte study, among identified peer schools of veterinary medicine, there's an average number of total applicants of 1,100 each year, and less than 110 were accepted per each university. We've had unbelievable support from numerous individuals, from Congressman James Comer, a former state representative, a former commissioner of agriculture, Senator Rand Paul. You have received letters from these individuals, and numerous producer groups and others, counties, cities, area development districts, those that are feeling the shortage and the need in rural Kentucky and across our Commonwealth, east to west, north to south, today. I received 2 other letters of support yesterday, and I think they were sent to the chairman as well. We'll provide you an updated list after January 1st. A few days ago, the Kentucky Farm Bureau Federation Board met and issued a couple of positions among several others. First, and I quote, to support efforts that will retain and attract new business and industry to rural areas of Kentucky. with a priority on agricultural processing facilities. A School of Veterinary Medicine obviously would be a key component. And importantly, and I quote, we support, from the Kentucky Farm Bureau, we support legislation to allow Kentucky's comprehensive universities to offer doctoral degrees, and this would include a doctorate in veterinary medicine. And I want to thank Kentucky Farm Bureau for these positions and their vision and support as it relates to agriculture and advancing these particular issues across the Commonwealth. Furthermore, 22 states do not have a school of veterinary medicine, and Kentucky is one of them. Perhaps we're the largest agriculturally focused state without a vet school. There are currently 33 schools of veterinary medicine in the United States. Most importantly, a School of Veterinary Medicine at Murray State University is a win-win for this Commonwealth. It's only a positive in every respect. No one loses. We advance this initiative to help find solutions, and we've worked to not hurt anyone or any group. And again, this advances agriculture. The easiest thing for us to have done would have been nothing. And we've been trying for 50 years to advance agriculture in this particular area. The creation of a Murray State University School of Veterinary Medicine will, contrary to anything you may hear, will not impact the state's regional contract agreement for veterinary slots at Auburn or Tuskegee. This is a public policy decision handled by you in the budgetary process. The current national need for veterinarians totals 5,000. The American Association of Veterinary Medical Colleges in Washington, D.C., who we've met with, recently commissioned a study. I don't think Deloitte talked to this particular group. We did in our study. This study looked at the supply and demand of veterinarians, including schools of veterinary medicine being considered or coming online. Chair Tipton, to your point. There will be a need by 2032 of 70,092 veterinarians, and with projected graduates, it covers only about 76% of the need. From the Kentucky Veterinary Shortage Work Group, commissioned by the Department of Agriculture, it was dated almost 1 year ago today. This report identified fewer than 3% of Kentucky veterinarians who dedicated 70% or more of their time to large or food animal work. Furthermore, stated in the Kentucky Department of Agriculture press release, nationwide there's a shortage, as we all know, of large animal veterinarians. It's creating a negative impact as farmers search to find the veterinary care that they need for their animals. Large animal veterinarians are essential to the protection of the nation's food supply. Again, nationally, only 5% of veterinarians practice on large animals. 95% have turned to companion animal practices, primarily dogs and cats, research, or regulatory. Importantly, Kentucky ranks in the top 5 nationally regarding the number of farms that we have. Kentucky ranks number 1 in thoroughbred breeding and total equine sales. Kentucky ranks 8th in beef cattle inventory in this country and number 1 east of the Mississippi River. There are 32,000 farms raising beef cattle, approximately 1 million head. Dairy production in Kentucky is a $243 million industry. Poultry production in Kentucky ranks in the top 7 states, with about 1,000 large-scale farms. Representative, to assist with the question, Representative Stevenson, that you had, the late Mr. Bill and Mary Garrett, alumni of Murray State University from Florida, Winter Haven, Florida, passed away a few years ago. However, we're now receiving their estate of about $4.5 million to enhance the Hudson School of Agriculture. We will specifically use this gift to focus on large animal veterinarians as incentive monies to practice in rural Kentucky. We cannot make anyone do this type of work, but we can provide incentives, and we plan to do that. This gift will help us in regard to making that a reality. 5,000 students today are seeking vet degrees overseas. 2,000 vets retire each year. There are about 11,000 veterinary students per year battling for about 4,600 vet school spots in the United States. The need for vets will grow about 20% during the next few years. And finally, a few points regarding the distributed or clinical model, some will call it a veterinary education. In the past 45 years, 5 of the 6 new vet schools utilized this model. Today, the University of Kentucky partners with Lincoln Memorial School of Veterinary Medicine, which uses the distributed model and provides student rotations through their animal diagnostic laboratory, just like our Breathitt Veterinary Center, and the Gluck Equine Research Center. Veterinary practices all over the Commonwealth are hiring distributed, educated veterinarians. And to say it's inferior in any way is just simply incorrect. All veterinarians, no matter where trained, take the same examination in order to practice and have the same licensure requirements, the exact same. As I close, for 50 plus years we've been making our case. Murray State University has been working hard to assist in finding solutions. Agriculture is a multi-billion-dollar industry. We need to take good care of it. We're trying to do our part. And again, I want to thank you for your support and time today, your support of Murray State University, and thank you for all that you do for the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Dr. Parr, you going next.
Yes, sir. Thank you for letting us be here today. It's good to see everyone again. And for the record, I'm Brian Parr, Dean of the Hudson School of Agriculture at Murray State. I wanted to address just a few issues that I know have been discussed that involve the resources that I currently have charge over in the School of Agriculture. And this deals with the collaboration that we've proposed and the collaboration that is necessary in order to carry out this School of Veterinary Medicine in a very financially responsible way and a very lean way, to be honest with you. This culture exists. Our farms are there to serve our programs. We serve a lot of different programs within agriculture right now, and I guess that's just kind of the culture. And so whenever the question is, can and will the resources be shared with a School of Veterinary Medicine, then I can say yes, most definitely. I'm here to offer those resources. Now, as far as those questions, if that comes from an accreditation standpoint, that's not an issue whatsoever. I think in some universities you may see turf wars as an issue, but the accreditation is not a problem. As a matter of fact, as Dr. Jackson just mentioned, the University of Kentucky is home to the diagnostic lab that's used exclusively by Lincoln Memorial. And so it not only is it okay if we share among the university, we can share among different universities or in private practice for that matter, in which this model is dependent on. And so we do operate a little bit different. We have a lot of student workers, and that's really who we are. We serve students. We serve a lot of first-generation students, and those are the students that I identify with, that my heart goes out to, that they need a chance, they deserve a chance. Most of our students are working to pay their way through college. They work a lot, and frankly, we couldn't do what we do without student workers. I hire upwards of 60 student workers each year to work on the 5 school farms and within our offices and labs and the different things that we do. If we were to total all these up and put these as well as the other people that teach part-time and work as farm managers and assistant managers part-time, we would get to that 40-plus staffing requirement that we saw there in the study. We're just currently doing it already, and we're there to share those resources. And I can say with the utmost of confidence that collaboration will happen. It's going to happen. So, and also addressing the other issue that was brought up about we participate, have faculty that participate on the institutional committee of the oversight of the use of animals in teaching. And we're very familiar with that through our pre-vet and our vet tech program. We're familiar with what the USDA requirements are for those animals that are used for teaching purposes, and currently have that knowledge and put it into practice. Once again, it's something different about us of being a smaller community type shop. We have those animals on hand already that we're using for the pre-vet vet tech. It's not that they belong to animal science and they never see a pre-vet or vet tech student. It's all the same animals. So we're currently participating in that process and are committed to making sure that we carry that out as effectively and really carefully as we need to. The statewide pipeline, we believe, is definitely a strong suit. And really, if we want students to return to rural Kentucky to practice veterinary medicine, those students need to come from rural Kentucky. That's who goes back to rural Kentucky, is those that were born and raised there and can come and get the appropriate education. We have this system of dual credit that stretches the entire state, that reaches upwards of 1,000 students per semester in agriculture alone, that allows us to know people in each of the communities. We know the agriculture teachers, we know those that are there that are influencing those students that could choose veterinary medicine as a career, and identifying the talent, the potential talent in those students that they have in their classes. And so we're committed to seeing that pipeline continue to draw students into our programs, including veterinary medicine, in order to see them educated and then return to those communities to practice. And as it's been said before, we can't guarantee that that's going to happen, but there's a much better chance that whenever they come from a very rural part of the state, that they would go back than to recruit them from a urban or a suburban area and try to incentivize them to go there, with that being their only incentive as a financial incentive or what have you. And so we feel like both is needed, as Dr. Thompson has mentioned before. Both is needed, but we realize that the financial provides a temporary fix, and drawing students from those areas would provide more of a permanent fix. As far as attracting faculty, we've discussed this before, but what we're looking for as professors in the School of Veterinary Medicine primarily are general practitioners. Now, we currently have some very, very specialized veterinarians working at the Breathitt Veterinary Center, and in order to fulfill those roles, not only do they have to have a DVM degree, they also have to be board certified or have a PhD that goes beyond in something like virology or toxicology. And so those are the very hard faculty to find, and we have them. We have them in place. The others that we were looking for are general practitioners in this competency-based education. And one thing that I will say is a little bit different than what I heard there just a minute ago from Amy. Our students will not be going out into those clinics in the third year. They'll go out in the fourth year. The third year is an internal clinic where they go through these rotations in surgery and anesthesia. All those labs will be built in the school. They will go through that just as they would in any traditional veterinary school. When they go into the rotations in the fourth year is when they would go out into the clinical practices in order to cover those competencies. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I will say that from the survey that went out, that our friends from Deloitte put some results on the screen there a minute ago that went through our Kentucky Vet Med Association. We had, I believe, 174 veterinarians in the state that responded that they would like to participate as a teaching site for a college of veterinary medicine at Murray State. And Deloitte had predicted that we needed about 200 sites in order to pull that off, and I would say that's fairly accurate. But let me point out that there are about 1,600 practicing veterinarians, and I got my number from KVMA, so I'm assuming that's correct. There are about 1,600 licensed veterinarians in the state, and if 440 of them responded, and of that 440, 174 say they'd like to participate, that tells me there could be upwards of 600 in the state that would like to participate. We had 1/4 of them respond to the survey, and out of that 1/4, 174 said they would like to participate. I found that to be extremely encouraging from our community of veterinarians that, as you may hear, they have some reservations about what's happening, but would say if we are successful in making this happen, they'd like to be a part of the process. And we're excited about that. We need them. We have to have them, and we're excited about them being a part of the process. As far as attracting faculty, as I mentioned, the boarded specialists are hard to attract, or they're hard to find, not hard to attract. They're rare. The veterinarians that teach in our program, we have had no problems attracting veterinarians. And I will say, as was mentioned by Deloitte a minute ago, the salaries that we have proposed and built into the budget for a vet school far exceed the salaries that we've attracted the veterinarians into our pre-vet and vet tech program. And so I do not believe that there's going to be a problem attracting these veterinarians in order to put them on the teaching faculty. It's a different approach, along with the approach with this placement in these clinical practices. We believe in using those general practitioners for this competency-based education, which looks different from most College of Veterinary Medicine faculty. Most will require an extensive amount of research to be done by their faculty members in order to make it through their promotion and tenure process. And that's not the model that we've developed here. Really, it's not the model of Murray State at all. We do a sufficient amount of research, but it's not the focus. Our focus is on teaching. Our focus is on educating students and educating them in an effective way so that whenever they hit the ground, they can hit the ground running. And so that's what the process is going to be, and we really believe that it's not going to be trouble. I've been contacted by veterinarians telling me they already have interest in teaching, multiple veterinarians, and actually 3 have contacted me from other veterinary schools that said, hey, I'd like to talk to you about even taking this role of founding dean, which I should address. We know that. We know that this college or this school would be an autonomous unit that has its own dean that would answer directly to the provost, just as I do. I would not oversee this college, but I've pledged our resources to make sure that this college is successful. And so I understand that completely, that it will be its own autonomous unit. And we do have people that are interested in that position. There are several across the country that are serving in associate dean positions in these distributed model schools that are interested in taking on this role as the founding dean. And so no problems there that I see whatsoever. As far as the model, the distributed model, it's a good model. It's just different. Willie Nelson said he ain't wrong. He's just different. And he's a better songwriter than a politician, though, Senator Howell. He's different. And this is just different. It's not something that a lot of our veterinarians went through. Although when I read the comments from the Deloitte study and from the KVMA survey, when you hit one that was a graduate of one of these programs, they really brag on it. And I doubt you'll hear from one today that we're telling you about the inferiority of their education that they received. And so it's no doubt that it's different. You can point to schools like University of Arizona where their students have struggled. But you can also point to the University of Calgary, which is a distributed model that started in 2015 and for the first 7 years had 100% pass rate on the novelty and have slipped down to 94% today. And by the way, that's first-time takers pass rate. They still have 100% pass rate, just 94% passed it this year on the first time. And so we have, if you want to pick out places and say, hey, look, they're struggling because of this, it may very well not be because of that. We see at least one traditional model vet school that we have students in that struggles tremendously, that is in grave danger right now of having their accreditation pulled, and they're a traditional model. And so I would say that there are a lot of reasons why Murray State is the perfect place for this. The resources are there. It's the most financially responsible way to put this in place, and it's something that's desperately needed by our state.
Mention how many we have.
Yeah, so we have 12 veterinarians, 9 at Breathitt, 3 there running our pre-vet vet tech program, which, by the way, out of the 3 there in our pre-vet vet tech program, we have 1 that was educated on the distributed model and 2 that was on the traditional model, and all 3 do a great job.
Thank you, Dr. Parr. Are you ready for questions at this time?
Absolutely.
All right. So
yes, sir, Mr. Chair.
We'll start with Senator Thayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, it's good to see you both. And Before I start, I just want to remind you of the old admonition, faithful are the words of a friend. I love Murray State. These three gentlemen are among my favorites in the post-secondary space. Spent a lot of time in my office over the years. Not everybody knows this because not very many people have been around as long as I have, but Bob Jackson was a member of the Senate when I first was sworn in 2003. He was a member of Democratic leadership, and he was as kind to me as someone could be, and I'll never forget that kindness. And, of course, I've always enjoyed working with Jordan, and Dr. Parr's heartfelt testimony is always appreciated. So I'm not going to be here to weigh in yes or no in the future, but I do feel like here in my last committee meeting before I exit the stage here, that there are a few points that I need to bring up. You don't have to answer. Some of them are rhetorical questions that I think need to be put on the record. I do think the Deloitte report does bring up a lot of questions. You obviously you're well prepared in parrying those questions, and I appreciate that. And I completely support your right to support your right to advocate to bring a much needed program to your school. I'm a big supporter of the comprehensives. My son went to NKU. The comprehensives do a great job. Some of the best people I know in Kentucky went to comprehensives. And so I want to preface my remarks by saying that. One thing I want to caution you on is remember, in this place, it's a lot easier to co-sponsor someone's bill than to vote for it in committee or on the floor. It's just a truism about this place. It's, everybody likes to line up as many co-sponsors as possible to say that they've got that kind of support. I caution all new members to be very careful about signing on to other people's bills because it can come back to bite you. But I digress. A couple of questions that I think are going to be important for you to address, not today, but going forward. And by the way, I think it's very smart that you're coming before education and agriculture, but ultimately, you're going to have to get this through appropriations and revenue. And in the chamber that I've served in, you're going to be faced with some very tough questions from a chairman who knows how to get to the bottom of a spreadsheet faster than most people I know. So a few questions. And of course, I understand everyone from the Western Kentucky region supporting this. They should. It's in their backyard. So understand where I'm coming from. In Central Kentucky, I have a lot of veterinarians who are my constituents in my district and in my region. And one rhetorical question that needs to be put out there is, why are the people who know maybe more than anybody except the end user, but those in the profession, why are they in huge numbers against Murray State getting a vet school? Another question is why isn't the University of Kentucky all over this with enthusiasm and asking for the program themselves? Many of our animal science graduates at the University of Kentucky end up taking advantage of the program we have with Auburn. As a matter of fact, it's very rare to walk into a veterinary practice in Kentucky and not see a degree from Auburn University. Another question I think legislators are going to have to ask going forward is, will it address the need appropriately? Will it justify the huge taxpayer expense that is going to be made to support Murray's desire to have a vet school? Will it end up with more veterinarians, specifically large animal veterinarians in the rural areas of the state? It can't just be good for Murray to have this program. And it can't just be good for Western Kentucky. It has to be good for all 4.5 million people who live in the Commonwealth. I think you still have a ways to go to talk about some of these questions that are brought up about the distributive model. It just doesn't sound good. It's whoever named it the distributive model never took a marketing class because it's horrible branding. It just doesn't sound good. And the accreditation issue, I think, is going to be something you're going to have to overcome. Finally, I would also like to say to the advocates, and with all due respect to my friends in the cattle industry, the vet shortage in Kentucky is largely being driven by what's happening in the horse industry. And we have a shortage of clinical veterinarians. We have a shortage of ambulatory veterinarians. We have a shortage of regulatory veterinarians. Just ask Jamie Eads at the Kentucky Horse Racing and Gaming Corporation. I just had to say that one more time before I leave. So I want everyone to remember that it is legislation that has been passed by the General Assembly giving the horse industry the necessary parimutuel tools to thrive and become the best year-round horse racing and breeding state in North America. That is in large part driving this need for veterinarians of all types, as I mentioned earlier. So please remember that going forward. If you forget it, just check my Twitter. I'll remind you there. I know that there are veterinarians in the crowd today, Mr. Chairman. I think it would be very helpful if we heard from members of the KVMA. I don't want to usurp your authority as chairman. If you want to call them up today, that would be great. If not, I certainly understand. But I think that the frontline practitioners need to be heard just as much as Murray has been heard on this. So that's my final comment. I wish you guys the best. I didn't say I'd vote for it or I vote against it, but I just wanted to bring up some important questions on behalf of constituents who I represent as this question is dealt with over the next few years here. I wish you guys the best, and I hope your basketball team has another great season. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, you want to
Yes.
answer a few of those? Leader Thayer, thank you for the kind words. It's good to see you as always, and I know the General Assembly will miss you here, and I'm sure you have plenty of plans in the works going forward. I look forward to seeing and hearing about those. Why are some veterinarians opposed to this? It's not all. It's some, and it would be primarily, I think, the one association. It's human nature. If you're not educated through a distributed model, you're not going to support that type of model. And whether it's good marketing or not, that's not a term that we placed on it. It's also called a clinical model in some states, a clinical model. So clinical model, distributed model, some call it a community model. That's the reason why. So many of our veterinarians are educated at Auburn. It's a traditional model as it's known. So I think it's human nature that they're not going to support that particular model, a distributed or clinical or community model. The University of Kentucky has said at this very table, they're neutral on this issue. They're going to not, I think the quote was, not get in the way of Murray State University and the plan to advance this initiative. And I'm paraphrasing, but it was something to that effect. I've talked to Dr. Capilouto a few times, and his staff have testified at this table. So I think that is why. It's just not, I'm assuming that it's not a priority for the University of Kentucky. It has been for us for 52 years. And again, the easiest thing for us to, in regard to actions since that time, our actions would be not to keep bringing it up, not to do anything. Let the shortage remain. Let the issue, I guess, bubble up to some point where we would have to act. That would have been the easiest route. That would have been the easiest route. We chose, and I think we have a responsibility, and you know me a long time. I think if there's a responsibility or an issue or a problem, I've always tried to make sure that we've addressed it in some form or fashion, and that's what we're doing today. In regard to dollars spent, the new veterinary sciences building that is being designed at Murray State at this time, which I hope and pray is step one of a School of Veterinary Medicine, has been funded and appropriated by you. And again, thank you, a $60 million facility. One of the members of the design team designs schools of veterinary medicine. It will be designed like a school of veterinary medicine as well, because we're training, again, students who are pre-veterinary medicine or vet tech students who are going to be serving or going to vet schools. At least many hope so. So I think those were some of the questions, just a really quick response to them. Dean Parr, you may want to add.
And Chairman Heath, I would say you do have a recent letter from a veterinarian that is supportive, that outlined many reasons of why Dr. Eastwood would support this. And so there are some voices there.
Yes, and I'll call to the members' attention, the two letters that you guys have mentioned are in your folders. I draw your attention to that. And one of them is from a veterinarian, but the other one is from the judge executive in Webster County, and he also chairs the Green River Area District Development. And he requested in the last paragraph of that letter that this be read into the record. I'm not going to take time to do that today, but I checked with Kelly here, and this letter will go into today's minutes and will be available online for anyone to pull up and see. So I would draw your attention to that. And then we have another question or comment from Representative Tipton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. President Jackson, Dean Parr, Jordan. We've had a lot of discussions about this issue over the last couple of years. I remember back, I was on a task force, I believe it was around 16, 17, where we were discussing what should we do going forward. There was discussion then about possibility of opening a vet school. At that time, the general consensus was to stay with our current model with the slots that are available at Auburn and Tuskegee. There is no doubt we have a shortage of veterinarians, primarily large animal veterinarians. It's not easy work. I think it'd be great if every member on this committee had the opportunity to assist a veterinarian doing a surgery for displaced apple mason. I think they would find that interesting.
Mm-hmm. They would.
Some of you might not, but we have the need. So the question is, and I think Leader Thayer framed this discussion very well. We have to make a decision about what's in the best interest of the citizens of the Commonwealth going forward, and what's the best direction going forward. It would be real simple. I've read the legislation. I know the statute. There's a prohibition on comprehensive universities, and it just puts an exception in there. That part would be easy. But it's the next part after that which gets more difficult in meeting some of these challenges. I do have some questions about some of these challenges. I'm glad we were able to get the $60 million appropriation. So I guess my question is, if we remove that prohibition, get approval to move forward, how much additional, and it talks in here about the need for financial resources, what's going to be the additional commitment financially necessary to put the facilities in, the startup cost to get this going to a start? And you're only going to have 1/4 of your. You're going to gradually build up your student total, so it's going to take a while to get to that point where you're generating the tuition revenue. So could you elaborate a little bit about, because A&R is where this is going to be decided. I think we all know that. Could you elaborate a little bit about what's going to actually cost to get to the point where the school could operate and hopefully in the black, but at least break-even basis?
Sure. Chair Timpton, thank you. And in our feasibility study that we had completed, that many of you, all of you have a copy, many of you will remember this, was $90 million. That was the cost outlined in our feasibility study to advance this initiative. So $60 million was advanced for a new veterinary sciences building to enhance the programs we currently have. So it would be an additional $30 million to get to the 90.
Yes.
On the issue of accreditation, I'm sure you looked at what the qualifications for accreditation are. What obstacles to accreditation have you identified at this point, and what's your plan to overcome those obstacles?
Well, it's a process that's outlined by the AVMA, and really very early on in that process is identifying and hiring a founding dean. That person would be an administrator that would be charged with laying out the curriculum to be approved through an accrediting body. And so I don't see that as an obstacle. It's a very well-defined process that we would follow, that would start with, and as I mentioned before, we've had 3 people inquire about a job that doesn't exist. So I think that we would have great success in finding those people. As a matter of fact, we mentioned before that we toured 3 of these models. We went to Long Island University, Lincoln Memorial, and Texas Tech since we met in the last session. And really at 2 of those 3, we've had assistant and associate deans express interest in applying for a founding dean position. And so they're great models. They welcomed us in with open arms. And it was really also, I guess, kind of reaffirming to hear that they went through almost the exact same process and the exact same apprehension and even opposition as what we're experiencing. And they've overcome that.
And if I could add to that, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay.
Yes.
To Chair Tipton's point, we have 148 academic degree programs at Murray State University. Many of those are accredited at the highest level. And we go through this accreditation process for all of those programs, or for many of those programs, I should say. And so we know that process quite well. We just finished the SACS COC. Every college and university in the country to receive federal money and state money as well has to be accredited at the highest level. Our institution just received last week, it's a 10-year accreditation with no recommendations. The highest recommendation that we can receive at any institution, we just finished last week. So we know this process pretty well, actually.
And Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just one really quick point as well to Chairman Tipton's point as well about and we agree this is not something that can be just good for Murray State, but I think sometimes the General Assembly, and I understand because you all aren't looking at enrollment data every day like we are, but at Murray State, Eastern, Western, Moorhead, Northern, you name it, we have students from all over the Commonwealth. At Murray State, we have students from 110 of 120 counties, and we educate these students, and many of them, and we encourage them to go back to their home county and work, whether it's in engineering, whether it's a nurse anesthetist, whatever. But we truly see this as not just something that's good for Murray State, but is good for the Commonwealth. And people who support this, and I'll give you an example, like Transylvania University, obviously not located in Callaway County, they understood that this was good for transy students, for some of their pre-vet students. So yes, we're a comprehensive university, and we take our 18-county service region duties very seriously, and they are the ones who've actually come to us to say, we are dying out here. We do not have enough vets. What can you guys do at Murray State? But we not only care about our 18-county service region, we care about the entire state. And if there are clinical opportunities that I know Dean Parr's identified, be it in Lexington, be it other parts of the state. That's why the Louisville Zoo also, when they heard we were looking into this, they said, guys, we have a huge shortage of veterinarians just at the Louisville Zoo, and actually issued a letter of support as well. So I just wanted the body to know that we agree with you that this is not just something that should be good for Murray State, but for the whole state. And that's what our focus will be if we're successful. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go back to Representative Stevenson with a follow-up question, and then that will be the last one. We have 4 veterinarians that have signed up to speak. I don't have a clue if they're for or against. It doesn't matter. They've signed up to speak. Just to give you a heads up, we're going to allow each one.
I'm sure they're all for it.
We'll find out. I'm going to commit 5 minutes to each one of you to speak. That's going to use 20 minutes of our clock up approximately. You don't have to take all 5 minutes if you don't want it. But I want to save the last 10 minutes for Murray State to have the final say after the veterinarians come. So Representative Stevenson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you all addressed some of the questions that I had asked in, excuse me, in the presentation that you gave. And so some of my comments, I guess, really are more just to get a few things into the record, talking to my colleagues as things that we need to think about moving forward. In one of my original questions, we talked about that you have the 10 faculty members that it seems that you intend to use in this capacity as well. So I have concern for their bandwidth and really, like, if they're going to keep going on the vet tech side and all that, are they really going to have bandwidth to come in and do this? I am concerned. It's my understanding that the current licensure exam pass rate is only about 57%. Is that correct? About give or take. So I'm worried about getting our doctoral candidates up to an 80% pass rate. And also with faculty, you know, last I heard, there's almost 800 faculty shortages across North America. I'm glad to hear that you say that you believe that you can be highly competitive in pay, because I think that will be very important as there are just tons and tons of faculty, you know, openings across North America. So one thing to consider, you know, will any teleeducation happen, online classes, things like that, especially in the beginning? Is that something that you think that you might?
Representative Stevenson, thank you. And I'm going to answer one question at
Sure.
a very broad level, and Dean Parr will answer the others very specifically. So, again, we have 148 degree programs at Murray State University. We have PhDs in cybersecurity, computer science, finance, economics, education, nurse anesthesia, which is a doctorate of nursing practice and nurse anesthesia. So we have a program where we're putting people to sleep in rural hospitals and waking them back up. Yeah. I mean, we do this well, and we hire a lot of faculty in a lot of different areas. We don't really see this that differently. I mean, it's another academic program for us. Again, whether it's an engineering-related program or something else. So I wanted to make sure on the record that was pointed out. It's universities hire faculty, and we hire faculty, the best faculty we can find at the very highest level.
Mm-hmm. As far as the current faculty, the vast majority are employed at the Breathitt Veterinary Center. We only have 3 that are in the pre-vet vet tech program that teach a full schedule already. Okay, and I understand completely if we were to try to add that to them, but there are ways to mitigate that. For example, along with those 3 veterinarians, we have 5 licensed vet techs that are instructors in the program as well, which are relatively available to hire more, to add to that, to adjust the schedule of those 3 veterinarians. But by and large, I'm talking about those 9 that are veterinarians at Breathitt that are specialists in those different areas. Just as our friends at the UK Diagnostic Lab have faculty that do those tests and oversee those tests, as well as teaching those Lincoln Memorial students, ours would do the same. They have techs that carry out a lot of the tests, that take on some of the responsibility so that they can devote some of their time to teaching. And some of our faculty there do teach a minimal amount right now, and they're really itching to teach more. If you ask them, they would love to be able to teach more classes. And so it's not only something that they have the capacity to do, it's something that they definitely want to do. Now, the pass rate that you mentioned there just a minute ago, that's in the licensed vet tech program, which is really comparing apples to oranges. If we're looking at a veterinary pass rate, much different. It would be like comparing the pass rate on a Microsoft Office competency exam to passing the bar exam. I mean, it's a completely different. And really, what we're guilty of there is we want everybody to have an opportunity. Most universities, and I think both of the other programs in the state, limit enrollment in those programs in order to kind of hedge their bets on who's successful on that test. And it's a wise move. It makes that percentage go up. We have let students come into that program and then graduate, and then they choose to take that test. Now, I will also point out that some even choose not to take that test. And unfortunately, this is a problem with vet medicine in the state. Them taking that test and passing it doesn't ensure them more money. It doesn't ensure that they're going to go to work at a much higher salary than even if they choose not to take the test or if they were not to pass the test. And so that's a problem in vet medicine, that the vet technologists are not appropriately rewarded for what they do and whenever they pass that exam. And so if you look at the numbers, well, our percentage is lower, but we had more than twice as many students eligible to take the test than the other two combined. And so there's sheer volume still putting out far more licensed vet techs than any place else in the state. And I agree that it's an issue that we must address it, but that's some reasons of why we are where we are.
Okay. Thank you. And Mr. Chair, if I may just quickly sum up my remarks.
Yes.
You know, it's a lot of money that we're looking at. I believe that the 88-90 million is probably low. I think that at some point that will balloon and balloon and balloon. And my biggest concern is that we make this huge investment, and down the road, as we keep cutting income tax and all of that money's going away, I worry that at some point we will have to make a decision between funding those spots at Auburn and Tuskegee versus keeping in with this. And obviously, if we've made this huge investment in a Kentucky school, then that's likely what's going to happen. And we all know that Auburn is one of the absolutely best vet schools in America. And so it concerns me that we will get to a point that we have to choose either or, and I hope that we don't have to do that. So I won't be here to vote, but I hope that the rest of you, really look at this, and before we take those taxpayer dollars and make a huge investment, that we just are sure that we're doing the absolute best thing for Kentuckians, for our students, to give them the best opportunity and to help our agriculture community and the vet community in the best way possible.
Thank you. In the interest of time, unless y'all need to respond to that, we'll go to the individuals who signed up to talk and then bring you back for your parting comments. I'll just go down the list the way you signed in, and the first one on the list was Deborah Shoulders, which is a veterinarian from Bowling Green. And we'll start a timer here for 5 minutes and try to keep everybody on track. I know we've all been here for a while, and we probably had about all the fun we want for one day.
Well, good afternoon, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk. First of all, I want to say thank you to you all for appropriating funding for our veterinary loan repayment. I was actually yesterday in Representative McPherson's area in Tompkinsville working cattle at CPC with a bunch of junior and senior high school students that the Kentucky Cattlemen's Association, Auburn University, and the KVMA Foundation all got together to pull kids from rural areas to try to get them interested more in veterinary medicine. I was on the committee to pick these students, so I was actually really happy to meet them, even though it was really cold and pouring down rain, and we were branding cows. So I had a lot of interest in talking to these students to see where they were coming from. They're all very interested in this. A lot of them asked me about the veterinary loan repayment system. And part of that is the reason they still want to go into veterinary medicine. We all know that it costs a lot of money. And we've heard pros and cons on the distributive model versus the regular model school. I did not go to a distributive model school. I went to a traditional school. My concern is the amount of money it's costing. The amount of money, I'm a really conservative, fiscally, economically conservative person with my own money. This is going to cost our state a lot of money, okay? It's not a one-time fee. There is no distributive model school that is funded completely by paying tuition. In order of how they get paid back for veterinary schools, first, it's money that is gotten from the veterinary hospitals. It's a distributive model. They're not going to have a veterinary hospital. The second is university contributions. Okay, so Murray, that's not on us. Murray gets to decide how much money they want to give them. The third is state appropriations. That's us. More importantly, that's my dollars and what you all do with them. Okay, and the last is tuition. And we asked them frequently over this last year, how much is the tuition going to be? And all they say is less than Auburn. Okay, well, how much less? They don't know. My other concern economically would be for the students themselves. When they have to go out of state, they incur a cost. Okay, they're going to a different place every 4 weeks. So they are incurring a cost. They already said LMU went to 35 different states. So we're shipping our students out to a different state where they may fall in love with that clinic and never come back, right? But they are incurring a cost in finding somewhere to live, have housing, and more importantly, it's a stress factor. I mean, it's already stressful enough being in school, but trying to get used to something in a clinic, and then 4 weeks you're gone and you're starting over again. There is a consistency in a traditional model school. It is consistent throughout. You may not get to do the same thing every time, but there is a consistency. The pass rate, you know, it is an economic impact on bringing tuition dollars into Murray. It's an economic stream on how many students they bring in. The pass rate, I'm very concerned about because a veterinary technician is going to get out and still get a job. Even if they're not licensed, they're still going to go out, be able to make an income working in a veterinary clinic. A veterinarian, what are they going to do? They're going to go into USDA or they're going to work for a drug company. Okay, those are their only two options if they don't pass their national board exam. If they don't pass the national board exam, they still have the $200,000 plus in debt and are now working in a career where they may or may not get to do what they went to school for, which I realize in other different areas that's something they can do. But I have a problem with giving them false hope of going through school and getting this done and not having the education to get them over the finish line to become what they want to be, and wasting a lot of money while they do it. So those are my main concerns. I love Murray. I love the western part of the state. You know, I think Murray's a great school. I have problems with the amount of money that is going to have to be spent, not only getting it started, but every year from now.
Thank you. You hit your 5 minutes real close, and we're going to allow your constituent, Sean McPherson, to ask a question or make a comment.
Okay.
I'm just going to make one comment. Her brother and I were roommates in college, and she was a couple of years younger than me, and she called us in class. It still is a couple of years younger. She called us in class, but I helped pull her through some of those classes, so now that's why she's a veterinarian. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second on the list was Phil Prather, a veterinarian from Hillsborough, Kentucky. Yes, and I failed to do this a while ago, but when you turn your mic on, go ahead and introduce yourself, even though I've already done that, but that way it's coming from you for the record.
Can you hear me?
Is your green light on there on the mic? There's
yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
You can
yes,
pull it up close to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for letting us come today. I am a retired emeritus professor from Morehead State. I was the pre-vet advisor there for 25 years. So I had about 1,500 pre-vet advisees over that time period. About 200 of those went on to veterinary school.
And if you'll say your name for the record, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Phil Prather.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. I have basically, and I'm a veterinarian and licensed in the state for 40 years. The last 25 years I have fought tooth and nail at times to obtain funding for the contract spaces. I went to school on a contract space, and most of the people that you're going to see in clinics have benefited from that contract agreement, primarily with Auburn, but a couple other schools over the years. This contract space seat contract costs us, I think right now, about $5.6 million a year. And of course, that's about a third of what Deloitte has estimated, maybe about a $15 million a year budget it's going to take to have the school at Murray. I have great colleagues at Murray. I have no issues with Murray. What I have an issue with is why we need a veterinary school in our state. Because we really, although Murray's asked for this for 52 years, for 70 years, my perspective is we have had a vet school in this state. It happens to be 8 hours south in Lower Alabama. But they are committed to our students, 40 students a year, for the past 70 years. We get as many students educated at Auburn as Alabama does. So this is a wonderful contract we've had with them. They are absolutely 100% behind it. Auburn has one of the strongest food animal programs in the country. So the thought of, well, we're going to make a vet school here that's going to, outdo that, I think may be a little short-sighted, because we already send students to a school that have outstanding food animal faculty. Auburn University has 500,000 square feet of veterinary facilities dedicated just to veterinary medicine. They don't share anything with anybody. They don't have to share animals with other facilities or other programs. Those are the facilities for that vet school. They also have currently about 125 board-certified specialists in various areas. And I realize that there are some good people at the veterinary diagnostic lab at Breathitt. They're very fine people. I know a couple of them are great friends of mine. But they're pathologists, so they look at dead animals and try to give you an answer why your animal died. That doesn't cover surgery. It doesn't cover internal medicine. It doesn't cover equine specialty types of things that they would do. It doesn't cover any reproduction, whether it be cattle, equine, or small animal. So I have very serious concerns about the level, the quantity and quality of faculty members that it's going to take to teach all those different disciplines. The AVMA accreditation process will look very strictly at curriculum, and they will not vary on the fact that you need to teach all the disciplines, not just food animal, not just things that are going to make more rural veterinarians. They're going to require a full curriculum. The application process to vet school is very strenuous. They want it to be that way because they don't want you to get to their vet school and fail. So there is a reason why there is 160 applicants in Kentucky per year, but only 40 go to Auburn, Tuskegee, and then there's probably a few more that get into different other schools. Some of the students are not qualified. So the pressure on the student is great to get in, but I think we have a veterinary school, and it has functioned for us at a very high level. It's time-honored. It's world-class. And I just would like to leave you with a question today, and that is, are we willing to give up a world-class education for our pre-vet students and future veterinarians to take on something that we don't know how to work? We don't have the facilities yet. The annual budget at Auburn is about $100 million. And so they have the resources, they have the facilities, they have the faculty. And it scares me a little bit to throw all that out the door to take on something that's unknown. And I appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate you coming today and for your information. Next on our list is it James Beckman from West Point, Kentucky?
Westport.
Westport. Sorry, I got close.
That's good enough.
And you have a guest with you?
I'm next on your list, so I thought I'd just come up.
Well, that's awesome. We'll do anything we can to save some time.
Speed it up.
I'll be efficient for you.
All right, thank you. So again, make sure the green light is on your mic. Just push that button one time, and then for the record, go ahead and even though I've introduced you, introduce yourself for the record so it picks up on your mic.
I'm James Beckman from Westport, Kentucky. I am kind of your poster child I am the first off, I did not go to Auburn, so don't really have a dog in that fight. I do have a lot of good colleagues that come out of Auburn, and they do a great job, but I don't have a dog in that fight. I am a equine practitioner. We've got a 5 veterinarian practice, all equine up towards Louisville up there. And we do clinical instructing for a distributive model. So I have been on both sides of this fence, trying to hire people as well as instructing these people. So if you got questions, I'm happy to answer them. But in that, we have one boarded person in our practice, and there's 4 of us otherwise that are not boarded. We are so worked hard or overworked that we can't have more than one veterinary student with us at a time. We take students from, I don't know, usually 6 or 8 different vet schools a year. And we limit that to 1 per rotation of 4 to 8 weeks, depending on which school it is. And that limits that. The reason we do that is we can't give good instruction for more students than that. There's just not enough bandwidth. We have to earn a living too. You know, we can't be professors and not earn a living, or we go under, and that ends all of that. In our area, fewer and fewer veterinary practices in equine. I don't ever touch a dog, so I don't know what the small animal practitioners are doing as far as their numbers go. But in equine, fewer and fewer of us are accepting students from distributive models. And that's just because of the workload. That's because we have to teach them so much, and we take it so seriously. We all understand, everybody in our practice understands that we have a job to do and that we are educating, that next generation of veterinarians. So we work very hard at that position, but many of my colleagues are stepping out of that realm because they just can't keep up with it anymore, especially with the increased number of distributive students coming from all over the country that are wanting to come in here and get their hours in. So I love Murray. I've got lots of friends that are graduates of Murray. Several of them are vet techs. The rest of them are all in agriculture. I have nothing but the utmost respect for Murray and their programs. It really worries me that we're looking to shift our seats or our veterinary education for this state from a top 10 university in the country to a distributive model. As a instructor for these distributive models, we work very hard and we do the very best we can. I can guarantee you I am not as good of an instructor and professor as someone that's been a board certified veterinarian doing this job for 20 years. I got work to do. I got horses to palpate. I got, you were talking about doing an LDA. Anybody wants to come out and help with the dystocia? More than happy to let you glove in. We'll have a big old party. But we've got things, we can't devote the time and that it takes to give that world-class education. And it really concerns me that that's, where we're going. I understand it was brought up about passing boards for the vet techs at Murray. As I understand it, that's kind of the pipeline of students they're wanting to put into that vet school, are the ones that are currently going into vet tech, and that, as many people have said, that's kind of their pipeline to get these agricultural-based students back into the vet school there so that they can come back to rural medicine. It worries me if we're only passing half of those students. It's one thing to not pass your boards as a vet tech. You can go work as a vet assistant for about 20% less and go on and work your job as a starting salary. You fail your boards as a veterinarian, you've got $200,000-$300,000 in debt, and you don't have a job, and you can't get a job. You have the exact same qualifications as that vet assistant that got there straight out of high school. So that scares me for those students. I ask that this committee and the legislature as a whole not abandon this top 10 school that we have a contract with. I ask that we not abandon that traditional school model, to go down the distributive road. If we want to go down that road as the state of Kentucky to have a veterinary school, I'm all for it. However, I think we need to go a traditional model and pony up the $300 to $500 million and go that road. That would be, in my opinion, a much better benefit for the taxpayers of the state of Kentucky to take that bite rather than to go this distributive model. I think it would much improve the safety of our food chain. I think it would much improve the quality of veterinarians that are working on our horses. So that's pretty much all I got.
Thank you. You hit 5 minutes right on the head. And I passed my paper away, so I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, hello. My name is Dr. Jennifer Quammen. I am a veterinarian based in Walton, Kentucky, so on the Boone County side, so in northern Kentucky. I am currently a candidate for AVMA president-elect, and AVMA, as you've heard a lot about today, represents over 105,000 veterinarians in this country and beyond. I am the immediate past vice president of the AVMA as well, and in that role, my job was to interact with veterinary schools. We have 33 plus another 5 or 6 if you include the 2+2 programs. If you're not familiar, I'm happy to share info on that. And there are several international schools that are part of this as well. So in my 2-year term as vice president, I visited almost 36 veterinary schools. And so I'm very mired in the knowledge about veterinary schools. I have been interacting with distributive programs, with traditional programs, with hybrid programs. And so I just want you to know that's how I'm coming to this for you. I also am a practitioner. I mostly do surgery and dentistry. That's pretty much all I do. And I don't work for a single practice. I fill in for practices where people don't or can't or are uncomfortable doing surgery. It's pretty much what I do in my day-to-day. And so you may never see me, in terms of an outpatient, but if you would ever like to come and see the procedures I do, you're more than welcome to join me. You've got my phone number. And I'm happy to pass out their info. The things I want to focus on today are 3 big picture items, and those to me are faculty shortages, the weak foundations of this model, and the financial risks for our Commonwealth. In terms of faculty shortages, you've heard a lot of numbers around that. I can assure you, having been at the AAVMC, the American Association of Veterinary Colleges, and other meetings where educators are paramount, almost a year ago, we had more than 500 faculty shortage in only the U.S. veterinary schools. This is before we add on another 12 to 14 schools, and this is before we expand class sizes, as you've heard, in a number of our programs. And so the ability to get those faculty, particularly those board-certified individuals, which, by the way, are required as part of the standards of accreditation that AVMA puts forward, is a giant concern. I think the foundations in terms of remote or distance education, I'm not even going to talk about the potential around distributive or not. I do think good students go through that program, and for the right person, any veterinary program you can be successful in. However, there's a lot of very hands-on, very tactical work that we do, and learning that digitally, learning remote radiology, learning remote surgery, those are very different things than working on those animals in real life. And so my concerns for you are to think about the education that we're putting forth. AVMA Council on Education currently is soliciting information up to January 15th for individuals to talk about remote-based education. And the U.S. Department of Education also right now has a very big question on defining what distance learning looks like. And so that might impact us. The third thing I want to mention with you is these financial risks. This is a gamble that we can't take in this Commonwealth. I think there's a very large price tag to creating a veterinary school, no matter what model you choose to create in a veterinary school. The traditional hybrid distributive or clinical is preferred by President Jackson, and I actually prefer that myself as well. I think the burden is going to fall on the students, and it's going to fall on this state, and it's not going to reach the intended workforce benefits that we are set out to do. I would love for you to think about the fact that we have data on workforce and veterinarians that says you need 2 to 3 veterinary technicians per veterinarian to be maximally efficient, see the correct and appropriate number of patients, and get the needs of the public served. We are not producing that number of technicians per veterinarian right now. And so I leave you with 3 points: faculty, poor foundations and finances. And I really want you to think about the workforce side of that, in that if we really want to invest in this, I would really encourage Murray to just amp up their technician program and become the best, not only in this Commonwealth, but in this country. Make veterinary technicians and technologists that our entire country and beyond can actually utilize. I'm more than happy to answer questions. I know a small comment came up around the mid-level position. I also have very strong thoughts on this. I rarely suffer from a lack of an opinion. And so if you would like to know anything about that, I'm more than happy to answer your questions as well. And I think I did good on time.
You did very good on time, and thank you very much. And I'm going to ask Murray State to come back to the table, and they'll have the parting comment. And as you're coming, be respectful of our time. You know, most people after a 2-hour committee meeting, they've already checked out whether we've adjourned or not. So I'm sure there'll be other opportunities to address issues as the next session convenes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'll be very quick. It'll be just 2 or 3 minutes. To respond to some of the points, we heard worries and scare and risk, and I understand that. There are issues with any academic program that may be started at any institution at any time. We have 148 different academic programs at Murray State University. And at some point in time, we have started each and every one of those with an investment, and many have been highly successful. All have been successful in some form or fashion. I want to draw a quick comparison. There are approximately 200 medical schools in this country, MD and DO. We know we have several in Kentucky, right? At least 3. 75 dental schools in this country, approximately 198 law schools, approximately 142 pharmacy schools, and I can go on and on. But the area where we see the greatest need that's not being served today is in the veterinary science area. And again, that's why we brought this forward to have. I'm glad we're having this discussion. We've been having it for 52 years. And hopefully, I won't be here. I won't be here in 52 more years if it takes that long. But hopefully someone will continue having this conversation, and hopefully we'll get this done in the next few months as well. Lastly, I would point out what we're proposing has nothing to do with Auburn University, a great college of veterinary medicine. We support what has occurred there. Auburn's very important to Murray State from the standpoint of our students being able to go to vet school there. There were 160 Kentucky applicants to a vet school last year. 67 were accepted. 37 went to Auburn out of 130 applicants. So obviously there's a need. Obviously it needs to be addressed no matter how we address it, but we wouldn't do it in any other area. We wouldn't do it in human medicine, and we haven't, thank goodness, or any other areas where we see a need in this Commonwealth. It's a policy decision. Ultimately, it will be upon this General Assembly to make that decision. Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your time. Thank you all for your service, and Merry Christmas to everyone.
Could I address just a couple of the issues that came up?
Yes, Dr.
First of all, the comment of no distributed models operate without state appropriations. That's simply not true. Many are private schools, which receive no state appropriations. Lincoln Memorial, Long Island University, Midwestern, many are private schools, and that's part of the problem. We've got 50 students from Kentucky in schools other than Auburn, in vet schools, that are paying this exorbitant amount because it's a private school that they could get into. And so it's very expensive, and they're taking on that debt. And so we have enough students in other universities, in private schools and abroad, to fill the first class. And so definitely not the case. We've never met a farmer that during that prolapse repair that asked where you went to vet school and was that a distributed model. They don't even know those words. There's few circumstances that would end the contract with Auburn. One of them would be the decision of this body, and the circumstance that would be under would obviously be that what has happened in our state vet school is a tremendous success. It would be hard to see that as a negative. The other people that have the power to pull the plug on the contract is the Alabama legislature that may at any day decide decide that they need those spaces for Alabama students. We have no power over that whatsoever. We do not encourage anyone to consider withdrawing from that contract from that wonderful institution. I worked for them for 7 years. Great place, but there's some smart people in Kentucky too. I do not appreciate the whole inferiority complex of we can't do this because we're just not smart enough in Kentucky. They're not all that smart in Alabama. I lived there. So, Dr. Beckman, I would also say that generally speaking, the pre-vet and vet tech students are very, very different students, very different students. We do not intend to cycle vet tech students that were not successful in vet tech into vet school. That is absolutely unheard of. Very, very different students. They have their apples and oranges, no doubt. But to his point, if you decide to spend $300 to $500 million on a vet hospital, we've got a place for it. And so we'll definitely do that. We haven't had trouble attracting faculty. They're looking for a work-life balance that sometimes doesn't come with being a practicing veterinarian. And we have not proposed any of this coursework be done remotely. And I believe that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have two guys in the queue that want to make a comment or have a question. We'll first ask Representative Hale, and then Chairman Howell, you'll have the last word.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll be very quick, very brief. I live in one of those areas that's very, very underserved. I'm a cattle farmer. It's almost impossible. It is literally virtually impossible to get somebody to come to my farm when I have a sick cow or sick calf. It's almost impossible. But what I'm saying, what I want to say to you, and I'm not opposing it or I'm not in favor right now. I'm sure you gentlemen, and I'm sure the veterinarians in this room today are very familiar with a very good friend of mine named Dr. Clennon Turner. Do you know who I'm? I don't. Oh, anyway, some of the vets are shaking their head. Dr. Turner is my neighbor, has a house right across, doesn't live there permanently, but and he comes over and sits on my porch. He's probably 81, 82 years old at this time. He said to me, sitting on my porch, the exact words that the lady said from Boone County. I think she said Boone County. He said to me, be cautious. And he said to me the exact same words that she said a few months ago sitting on my porch. I think he's very respected in the field, very highly respected. And again, I look at this, and he said to me, Mr. Hale, be very cautious about this, very careful about this. So I'm just saying I haven't made my mind up one way or another, but I do take his opinion very, very, very highly. And that's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Chairman Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things. One, thanks to all of you who have come up and spoken on this and been involved in this issue from Murray State. Dr. Thompson, always great to see you. The vets, everybody that comes in. I think these types of discussions are the things we need to have in any major decision that we make in the legislature. And sometimes I'm more concerned that we don't have enough discussion rather than having too much. I want to kind of address the members of the committee on a couple of things that I think are important. First of all, I have had the pleasure of experiencing watching and being involved in the procedure that they're offering to let you come see. Don't go. It's just not something that you want to do. I love each and every one of you. Stay away, politely decline. And Dr. Parr, I want to apologize to you. I set you up inadvertently today. I should have told you to quote Don Henley lyrics rather than Willie Nelson lyrics, and you wouldn't have had as many questions from my friend.
It just fits so well, Senator.
What did you just say? That's on record, right? And then last, on a slightly different note, to Chair Heath, I just wanted to tell you how much I'm going to miss you and how much I appreciate all the guidance you've given me since I came into the legislature in general and in our area and in this committee too. And I could never repay you, but I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate it.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, and I appreciate that. And I have a parting word myself. I want to congratulate my vice chair here, Dan Pfister. We've worked together very closely, and I know he's been put in the position to continue to work with the next chair, Myron Dossett. So thank you for everything you've done. And then these guys up here, Kelly and Hillary and Susan and Stefan, couldn't do this without you. And Myron, we'll find out soon enough that you guys is what it takes to make this work. So I've enjoyed the 12 years I've been here. Really enjoyed the 8 years chairing this committee, and I appreciate every one of you. And with that, we're adjourned.